Hi, I'm Marcia Lehman and I'm a Knox County Master Gardener. Today we're going to tackle some renovation pruning on Crape Myrtles that some number of years ago had been murdered improperly, pruned, and we're going to come in and try and clean them up. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at the base like we do on a lot of plants and clean up around the bottom, and then we'll pause, we'll come back, we'll show you what that looks like after we cleaned it up, and then we'll move on and just work our way from the bottom up. Are you ready? Let's get started. Okay, so we've come along, and yep, we're going to take this out. Don't worry, that's the next step. But we've cleaned up any of the suckers that were around the bottom. And, whoops, here's one itty bitty one. But we will also be cleaning up a lot of bad pruning cuts, because if you look at this, we got two stumps here. And when I came to check out the plant, I just leaned on it and they broke off. That's not good, because now the whole base of this has been exposed to lots of weather. There's actually weeds growing in the soil that's collected in there. I'd want to watch this one in particular over the next couple of years to see what happens. Again, this will go in the next step. We got a bad pruning cut here that also just broke off. We'll get these. This one and this one had a fair amount of sizable sprouts coming out of the ground. This one is about 1.5 inches in diameter. There's another bad pruning cut that died. But you can see our little pile of debris, or not so little pile of debris, from what we took off just cleaning up the base. Okay, so the next step will be, we're going to look at how many major stems we have. Now the landscapers would say you want an odd number. If you get an odd number, that's good. But it's really, how does the tree look? And while we were doing this pruning, there was a question of, do I really want to take this off on the back? Because it'll make it lopsided. And my comment was, take it off, because people need to get in here to mow. And what we really care about is, how will these trees look from the street? So we can prune them a little hard on the back to make it easy for whoever has to mow in here and to keep debris out of the playground. But what we're going to do is shape them for how they look from the street. So that's step one, clean up the bottom. Now we'll come back and maybe reduce the number of major stems coming up, and we'll start to take out some of that growth that's up here in the waist to shoulder height area. Okay, so we've cleaned up to about shoulder height for me, about 4 feet. But what I want to point out here is we're not exactly sure. There's two hypotheses of what happened here on the trunk of almost every one of these 7 Crape Myrtles. One hypothesis is that this is damage from a string trimmer, a weed whacker. And you can imagine that happening, people coming in trying to trim around these. So it's quite likely that some of this is string trimmer. There is also a possibility, since these things have not been pruned in 4 or 5 years, that back in the winter of 2016, when we had 4 polar vortices, there were Crape Myrtles that actually died down back to the ground, got cut off at the ground, and then grew back. So it's possible, and there's also the probability that it's a combination of string trimmer damage and really, really cold winter in 2016. So this one sees it. I hope you can get a good view of that. Let me walk over here to the next one. It's a slightly different angle, but it's got the same issue down here around the base. And we took out all those dead things. As I say, we've cleaned up to about shoulder height. And now we'll get into the good part, which is cleaning up higher, and especially in those places where it was previously murdered and we got that spurt of shoots that come out, and we'll be thinning out some of those. So here's an example. You can see that this is where it was murdered before. Here, 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 a whole bunch. They just came in and gave it a haircut. And then what happens is you get a whole bunch of shoots that come out of here. And most of those tend to, in the beginning, are really spindly. They're weak. And since they bloom on new wood, you get a big blossom on the end of that. That weights it down, and some of them will break off, which is what we can see here. Some of them did break off. But what we're going to do today, like this one has 5, we're probably going to take out 3 of these and keep the 2 biggest, strongest ones. For the ones coming up through the middle, it's like, get out of here. We need to get airflow and sunshine into the middle of this tree so it's healthy, resistant to disease, and will blossom beautifully. Just think about how heavy the bloom load is going to be and how much that's going to fill up the canopy. We still want to get air and sunshine into the middle of this tree in July and August when it's in full bloom. So it may look a little sparse when we're done pruning today, but you really need to come back and see how it looks in July and August when it's loaded with blooms. So now we're going above the head, above the shoulders, and we'll start to clean up some of these old bad pruning cuts. Here we are. 5 of us have worked a little over an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes, and we are done for today and for this year. But as you look at these, you know, this was the first one, and I will show a before and after still, but this was the first one, which we thinned out quite a bit. Number 2, 3, and 4 were all much smaller, but as you can see, we have no branches below my shoulders. We've thinned out the center, lots of good airflow and sunshine for these summer blooms. Same on number 3, number 4, and then we get up here to number 5, which I think may be a different variety of Crape Myrtle because it's got a much bigger main trunk. Again, unless you see our fresh pruning cuts, you don't really know that this has been pruned. When somebody does Crape Myrtle, it is obvious that they have pruned and they have badly pruned. We do have a couple of situations. There's one on this where we already have branches that have grown together, and so we really don't have a lot of options to fix that. So we're just going to live with that. And then this last one, number 7, we cleaned up a lot of the knuckles where it had been pruned, badly pruned before. We actually found, we did take off one major stem here, but it's because when we looked at the back side of it, there must have been a 12 or 15-inch scar. So we took it off as low as we could. Not the best pruning cut, but the best we could do considering the size that it already is and not wanting to injure the adjacent branches. So if you've bought a house and you inherited some Crape Myrtles that had been murdered or mal-pruned or not pruned at all, I hope you've learned that you want to start at the bottom, clean out the suckers, then clear off low branches, generally below shoulder height. In our case here, we're concerned about the folks who have to mow around here. And then start thinning out the center, get rid of those crossing rubbing branches, take out anything that's damaged, like that big scar we found, and just open it up for sunshine and airflow, and then come summertime, enjoy all those beautiful flowers. I hope you learned something today. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to my crew of 4 who don't want to be named, but they were very helpful. They know who they are. Thanks.